Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for joining us on channel 347, also on our live stream, www.hilal.tv. The Cape is always rich with so much culture, heritage, and there have been a few organizations that have made their best attempts and have done so well in preserving the rich culture that is the Cape. And one such organization is the Cape Heritage Museum. And in studio, I'd like to welcome CEO and Curator, Brother Igshaan Higgins. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to yourself and to the listeners.
Jazakallah so much for affording us your time. You always come in giving us legal advice, political awareness, but today you're wearing a different hat and one that's very close to your heart, especially as well. What inspired you, Brother Igshaan, to become involved in, if I can call it, the preservation and celebration at the same time of Cape Town's cultural heritage?
Well, it's quite it's an intricate story, I would say. I mean, as you well know, I'm a lawyer by profession, and of course, I also get invited to a lot of international forums like universities to give lectures on Cape culture,
Right.
and especially the world is curious about how did Islam survive on this little spot of the map of Africa for so long, being totally isolated from other Muslim communities. So as a result, so I looked at these places. I'm looking at places maybe like Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkey. These people are very, very proud heritage traditions. So when we get to those countries, or even to the US, or the UK, you go there, everybody's very proud of their
They're patriotic.
And the heritage. And the first place they want to take you is, let me take you to the museum.
Right.
Then there you can see, wow, and it's like a story, a nice storyline in terms of the first people, and then of course how they got there, etc. And I was one day in a museum in Singapore.
Right.
And it was how the Muslims or the Malay people, Malays from Malaysia came over, and the entire story, with the ceremonies and the weddings and name-giving ceremonies, all this. And I thought to myself, if somebody must come to me in Cape Town and ask me, take me to the museum that speaks to the indigenous people, that speaks about the Muslims, that speaks about our slave heritage, where do I take them? The Bookab Museum in Wales Street, it was quite uninspiring when I went in there. It was, I was so disappointed. I actually called the staff and I said, who curated this? I thought it was like, as it was an insult to our people.
Right.
They had like comic books. I remember the comic book Finding Nemo in one of the cabinets there. I said, what does this got to do with our history?
Right.
There was some shoemaker who donated some old stuff and they put it into a cabinet. Philip's Hall. Philip's Hall is not part of history.
For sure.
So in any case, I was very upset and I stormed out of there. And of course, there is the District 6 Museum, which is based on a certain locale, which is District 6 and the history attached to District 6.
And the political
the
climate.
The forced removals, the climate of apartheid, group areas, etc. And that's wonderful.
Right.
Because it situates the history in that particular era and area. So I thought, no, man. But now, where are we, beyond those two museums? Then there was Antipathy's Museum in Simonstown. And it's really about that locale and the people of that locale. It's a wonderful museum, in a small museum in Simonstown. And Antipathy did a lot of work, hard work, to get it to that point. But still, not the full history. And I initially started with an art exhibition in Bookab in Wales Street. And then after doing it there, Ishmael Sukkar kindly said to me, listen, I've got a house here in Wales Street. There's nothing on top. Why didn't you put the art exhibition in there? Which I did. And we had it there for about a year and a half.
The famous painter, Brother Ishmael.
No,
That's other Ishmael.
That's Ishmael Sukkar from the Sukkar family. Is a very well-known family next to Atlas in Bookab.
Okay.
So in any case, so I had my exhibition there for a while. Everybody was oohing and eyeing about it, and I thought, and it was a
You're onto
narrative.
something. Yeah.
I'm onto something, and then my good friend Dr. Anwar Nagia passed
the
away.
late Anwar Nagia.
He passed away, and then we were looking, because it was COVID, it was difficult to find a place to have his memorial service after the janaza.
Right.
And then somebody came up with the idea, let's have it at the castle. And then we contacted the CEO of the castle, Calvin Gilfillan, and he said, well, you can have the memorial service here. Then I took the art with, especially the District 6 art, and put it into one of the rooms. And then the CEO asked, whose paintings are these? I said, no, it's my painting. And he said, don't you want to have an exhibition at the castle? I said, great, give me a space. So it was supposed to be for a 3-month period.
Right.
And then he gave me a space. But then somebody gave me a space. I don't know why they gave me that space, but it had no electricity. It was full of cobwebs. It wasn't clean. There was stuff packed in there. And I said, look, let me see what I can do. So I brought in my team, and they cleaned up the place. We put in electricals. We basically made it conducive to something special. And then I asked him, look, man, 3 months is not going to be enough. Not for the amount of money I've now put into this thing.
Yeah.
And I have a bit longer. So he said, okay, let's do a 6 months. So then I moved. Then I realized I have a lot of artifacts as well. And I brought in artifacts. So it was art exhibition with artifacts. And then the year became 3 years, and the 3 years is now till 2030.
Wow.
Within the Castle of Good Hope.
MashaAllah. The one of the things that, one always tends to think about when you go to a museum like this is the sensitivity around the artifacts, but more importantly about the exhibition as well. How do you address the issues of maybe, the colonialism, the slavery, and when people walk down a so-called memory lane as you take them, sometimes can be a little, stressful for them.
Yeah, I think firstly, that the overall philosophy of the museum, it is about social cohesion.
Okay.
It's about getting South Africans around the same table. We had a difficult history, we had a difficult past. We had to navigate through colonialism, imperialism, apartheid, slavery, separate development, pass laws, the DOP system. All of these things we had to navigate.
Right.
But we need to look at the future. I mean, we must remember the past and we must live in the present, but we must also have a type of a plan for the future. And part of that plan is to have social cohesion, getting people to be proud of a particular place.
Right.
So initially, the museum was called the Cape Muslim and Slave Heritage Museum.
Right.
But then I realized the type of interest that people have from all over the world, and especially South Africans. And then I decided, look, let's change the name to the Cape Heritage Museum. Now it becomes all-inclusive.
Right.
So now you take people, so now people come in there, and let's say an Afrikaner comes in there. So of course, we can't hide from the fact that there was apartheid. We can't hide the fact that we had colonialism. So it's there. So the first 2 items in that museum, so now there's 7 rooms, right? And each room has a particular theme. So the first theme talks to colonialism. Right. But when you get into the museum, when you come down that steps, you look into 2 signs. One says whites, and the other one says non-white. And these are original artifacts of the apartheid era. Right. Because the non-white sign come from a bench, and the whites only sign comes from a train. Right. Now a lot of people, white people, they get offended when they come in here. I'm in there, and they'll ask you, what is this? Why is it here? Can't we just forget about it? And some of them actually just walk out of the museum because they don't want to confront that past. So on that basis, you have you kind of have things in there to attract Afrikaners. You have things in there to attract the Jews. Right. You have things in there to attract Christians. So it's not a Muslim museum per
Right.
se.
Yeah.
It's rather the Muslim interaction with other people, whether it was the Khoi and the San people, whether it was people from the Eastern Cape that came across the Fish River, whether it is the Brits, whether it is the Afrikaners. They all feel at home there somehow because they say, "What? But this is the type of history that we never knew about."
Correct.
Sadly, 90% of visitors to the museum, even though it's a free museum, people can come there, except you pay a fee for coming into the castle, but then you'll have access to about 7 museums. But the Cape Heritage Museum, it's a free museum. And for some weird reason, Muslims themselves are not the ones actually visiting it most. It's mostly people that are non-Muslims.
Well, let's chat about it after the break and how we can change that cycle as well. We're chatting to the CEO and curator of the Cape Heritage Museum right here in Cape Town at the castle, Brother Igshaan Higgins. We're going to open up the WhatsApp line just after the break. If you'd like to communicate with us, give us your thoughts. Maybe you've been to the museum and let us know some of your thoughts as well. Thanks for watching us on Hilaal Live. We'll be back after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for watching us and thanks for joining us. The WhatsApp line open if you'd like to message us and be part of the show. If you are not from Cape Town and when you visit Cape Town, you need to come to the Cape Heritage Museum. It's based at the castle. Everyone knows where the castle is. But the Cape Heritage Museum is one of the museums in the castle that you need to visit. Tell us about our rich history, our cohesion between people that have come from Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, India as well. That have shaped our South African climate as well. In studio, CEO and curator of the museum, Brother Igshaan Higgins. Thanks so much for coming in, Brother Igshaan. We were chatting about the museum itself and, you know, the artifacts and the works. But when you were putting this all together, and I'm sure it must have been such a learning curve for you at the same time. And I would be so proud, you know, putting this together because it's part of our history. It's shaped who we are and what we contribute to South Africa and the world. What were some of the interesting, you said you've divided into 7 rooms.
Yeah.
Take us through that process.
Well, as I said earlier on, the first room is basically the colonial experiment.
Yeah.
The Khoi and the San, they lived in South Africa way before the Europeans got here.
Yeah.
They kept the Europeans. I mean, there was a battle in 1505.
Sure. 1505.
1505.
Wow.
Between the Portuguese and the Khoi community in the Cape. And the Portuguese were actually defeated at the Battle of the Lisbech or Salt River.
Right.
And that's why the Khoi people felt that, you know, the new Amazon building was actually touching on the
heritage.
And heritage.
Yeah.
So that's why but I mean, that's a discussion for another day.
Of course.
But anyway, the Khoi and the San, and then the Europeans stayed away for almost 150 years. And until Mr. van Riebeeck rocked up. And he obviously, it was first a trading station. And then, of course, later on, you know, they started taking cattle, they started taking land. And that's when the Dutch occupation was in full swing.
Right.
And of course, then the British came here and they again introduced their form of imperialism. And of course, slavery was abolished at that point in time. But the first room deals with that interaction. It also gives you like facts about certain facts that people didn't know.
Yeah.
So people must visit to come see what exactly that is about. The second room deals with how we got here, how we got to the shores of the Cape.
Right.
Places like Southeast Asia. So it wasn't just Southeast Asians that got to people from Malayu and from India and all those places in the Southeast Asian region, but also people from Africa, people from Zanzibar, Madagascar, the east of Africa. They all got here around about the same time, either as freedom fighters or as slaves or as prisoners of war. And I mean, people also brought in as laborers, so as indentured laborers. So, and people just never returned because obviously it was a mission to get back.
Yes.
But the reality of it is that second room speaks to that. Right? It gives you the entire, there's some swords there that was used to battle the Dutch.
Wow.
I have and the culture that was prevalent at the time in Indonesia. We examined that culture. We examined the slave culture. We examined the emancipation period. We also examined why it is that Cape Town people feel that they need to dress up like Arabs on occasion. So, but that all added to the cultural diversity.
I got you. Yeah.
Right? So that's the second room. Third room, we move to Buka, the slave quarter. And we talk about that dark period of history where people were actually enslaved.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of beauty that came out of Buka. Things like the wedding ceremonies. There's a lot of beautiful dresses that the ladies may want to come see. It's one of the dresses was actually one of the French fashion houses wanted to buy it.
Wow.
To display it in on the high street in Paris. But the lady that owned that dress actually said, no, I'll give it to the Cape Heritage Museum.
Amazing.
So we got some amazing artifacts.
And you know, people are very proud about their culture and their history, and we wear it, you know, proudly on our sleeves every day. We talk about it, we experience it, we you know, from the cooking to the fashion to how we greet and how we interact with each other as well. Does the museum allow for communities to come through and engage on certain topics, on certain cultural differences?
Yeah. In fact, if I may just finish to say, okay, so then there's the Buka room, then we deal with District 6.
Right.
And District 6 is all about the removal.
The forced removal.
Removal. But also about social cohesion between how the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians and even the gay community all live side by side. And the musical tradition of District 6 as well. So there's beautiful artifacts in there. Then you can move on to the cultural room where we talk about the Cape Malay choirs.
Right.
We also talk about the strength of our mothers. And there's a painting there of the famous Rosa, you know, the song that people say. So you speak about the strength of our women, our Muslim women, the strength of our mothers, and the diversity of our communities. Then the next room is the Klopse.
Right.
The Minster. Sweden every year was a day when the slaves were given a day off.
Yeah.
But it was also the Emancipation Day. So up till today, we still celebrate the Klopse.
Absolutely.
And there's a huge exhibition of the Klopse in there. And then, of course, the last room is the political room, where there is an artifact, which is the Freedom Charter. There is the Dompas in there. And a whole lot of other artifacts. Is the first ballot papers in there. And
that's amazing history.
Yeah. And of course, there's paintings and photographs of. In fact, everybody that comes in knows somebody.
Right.
Yeah, that's my uncle. That's my. And it's very beautiful the way people interact. But talking about groups, we do have relationships with. We have a relationship with the Khoi groups.
Nice.
With a lot of the Khoi groups, we have workshops with them. We also assist them with their own empowerment. We also have the Cape Malay choirs there.
Okay.
We have the minstrels there as groups that come in. And we have a very active school program.
Okay.
Like just today, that's where I came from now. We had a gangsterism workshop today.
Okay.
2 schools were rival schools and were fighting against each other. And we first take them through the museum. And we show them what bullying is about. You know, and how people were bullied through colonialism and imperialism and apartheid.
Yeah.
And then, of course, through forced removals. So gangsterism is another form of bullying.
Of course.
So after they went through them, we would take them into the boardroom of the castle, which is a 60-seater, and we take them through we take them through the whole process of gangsterism and why it is bad for society.
Gotcha.
And then also they interact with one another. But we also have a bullying program. We have a drugs program.
Okay.
So museums for me is not just about seeing pretty things in an old building or old stuff. It's really about the present as well. How do we face our future? By living in the present, but remembering and taking the lessons from the past.
Of course, yeah.
That
molded us. Yeah, that molded us so much.
I think it might be worth a while for people to visit the museum.
Absolutely.
Interact with the people that are there. We also got excellent audio-visual.
Lovely.
We got, for every room, we have a television screen that that runs the whatever is applicable to that particular room.
Okay. What's your take home when people come through and they walk through each room, going through the emotions, going through, because it can be very emotional as well. Somebody that's maybe, drawn to a particular artifact or a particular display. What's your take home experience that you would like people to have when they leave?
Well, I'd say that the people must feel that they are truly a South African. They must feel proud of the heritage and of the Muslim heritage in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to say also is people must embrace coming to museums.
Yeah.
I mean, we've won 2 awards. We've only been in existence for 3 years, but we won 2 national awards. One was for education excellence, and the other one was for the best heritage place in the country.
Nice.
So this is something that belongs to the Muslim community. So they must embrace it. But I guarantee you, I mean, people might listen to this now and think, one day I'll go there. But it changes your complete perception of who you are.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what people owe to the children. They owe it to the children to show them where they come from. Because when children know where they come from, they move forward with pride.
I've been in there briefly and I was so amazed, and I probably could spend a week in there and I still won't, get to see everything, because that's how well it's displayed and how nicely that one can get just, consumed in everything that's there. So well done to you and your team. I think it's a wonderful museum, and you're right, people should come through. We have lots of visitors that come from Johannesburg and Durban that would like to know more about the Cape culture. And I think that's the perfect place to start as well. So, shukr very much. We'd like to obviously come through one day, bring our cameras and have a bit of a bigger chat, more of a chat about some of the stuff you have there. So, shukran, all the best.
Shukran to you, Luqman, and shukran to the viewers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
There we go. That's the Cape Heritage Museum that you can visit when you come to the Cape. It's at the castle. There's a small entrance fee that you go into the castle, but you are exposed to many museums, and one of them is the Cape Heritage Museum. Make it part of your bucket list when you come to Cape Town. That's all that we have for you from the Hilaal Live team. We're back tomorrow between 5 and 6 p.m. inshallah. From the Cape Town team, Sohail Barnes, Mohammed Parker, and myself, Luqman Shadrack. Have a great evening. Assalamu alaikum.